A new Blue Drop progress report suggests that 23% of the country's tap water is ranked as a critical risk and doesn't meet legal safety standards. Farrell Adam, Water and Environment Manager from WaterCan, joins us now to discuss this. Farrell, thank you so much for joining us. So I was saying earlier that a poor score on that Blue Drop report doesn't necessarily mean that the water is unsafe to drink. So how should citizens interpret the scores in that report?
Well, I think that firstly, it is concerning. It doesn't mean that where we are, you can't drink the water. I think in our big kind of urban areas, you can drink the water is safe. And there's quite a more rural areas, then I think it is harder to actually trust the water that you're drinking. If we just look at recently, we had calls for people to boil their water in Gqeberha. And I think that kind of thing is concerning. It's going to happen more often.
So which municipalities scored so badly as to indicate that the water quality poses a significant health and safety risk to those who consume it? Just give us the top three worst off municipalities in the country.
So some of the worst ones were in KZN. The Umsunduzi area and Umgungundlovi area. So I think those areas were really bad. In Limpopo, I think it's really worrying that not only did they do badly on the Blue Drop, which is your quality of drinking water, but they also did badly on the Green Drop, which is the state of wastewater treatment plants. So the water in Limpopo is really concerning, and that province as a whole has done pretty badly.
And just going back to the KZN issue, I think it's important to point out that the samples on which this progress report is based are not from now. So the flooding has not influenced these scores, correct? This is from before the KZN floods.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes,
okay.
it's from January last year to December. But I think, looking at what has happened now, it's evident that if our infrastructure was not as bad as it is, and the fact that we didn't spend enough on building our infrastructure and maintaining our infrastructure, that we wouldn't have been hit as hard. We would have been hit hard, but not as hard as it is now in KZN.
Are there any common denominators between these worst-off areas that could tell us what's going wrong? Or should we just immediately jump to the conclusion that where the municipalities have received shocking scores, that must be due to corruption?
There's a combination of reasons, and I think it's all linked somehow. So you have corruption, that's true. But I think we also have, we have a lack of skills, technical skills throughout the country. So it's not one specific area, and I think that the lack of skills, the lack of ability to test our water, and corruption and mismanagement at a municipal level are all in one kind of powder keg. And that is the problem. That's why it makes it so hard to actually deal with the problems.
Farrell, and just coming to that lack of skill, I want us to be very clear. Do we not have skilled people, or do we not have the correct skilled people in the positions? In other words, are we looking at cadre deployment?
Yes.
Right. So
but
now
look,
that we've
I can't say that it's cadre deployment. Yeah, no, I can't say that it's that, but I do say that it is about not having people in the right positions. And because the budgets are so, affected, because the money is being spent on the wrong stuff, then you're not employing the right people so people would rather go and work in the private sector. That's the reality. And so that's the challenge when it comes to technical skills. But in South Africa, we do have technical skills. As WaterCan and as Outer, we've had people that have said they're willing to volunteer their time as engineers to assist some of the municipalities. So there are skills out there. It's about how do we use those skills? How do we get people to volunteer back their skills into building the societies? Because at this rate, our water is going to be damaged by in a few years' time.
So these days, active citizenry is no longer a nice to have. It's a means of survival for many communities. So what can citizens do to try and ensure that their constitutional right to safe drinking water is adequately provided for?
So I think the thing we're calling for, there's two things. One we're saying is that the municipalities, according to law, have to test the water. And the challenge is they only have to make those results public if something is wrong. And we say with the Blue Drop report, where you have 52% of our drinking water in a critical to medium risk level, that there should be more reporting from municipalities. So that's the one hand. So we need people to call on their municipalities and hold them accountable for the state of our quality of water, drinking water in this country. We're also trying to build, as Outer and WaterCan, we are trying to build a network of activist citizen science people around the country to be able to regularly test the water. We're working on the test kits, and I think that is to say to the municipalities, we will test the water and we will make sure that that you are looking after the people around you. And it's basically keeping watch over municipalities. And I think that is the reality, that we can't anymore allow government to do things without us being involved as citizens. There has to be, and that's the whole thing of democratizing ourselves, right? We need to be more involved.
Does this report also tell us anything about the maintenance of water infrastructure in general?
So that's the interesting thing. That is the one. So this report was regarded as an assessment. So what happens usually is you have a full Blue Drop report, and then 2 years later you'll have an assessment. The irony is we have not had a Blue Drop report since 2009. So why we're just having a basic assessment is debatable. But they could not, for this report, they could not look at the actual infrastructure and the assessment of the infrastructure. We're hoping that would come out next year. Having said that, we do know that municipalities should be spending at least 8% of their budget on maintenance and upholding our infrastructure, and they're not doing that. In some places, it's less than 4%. So then you know why our infrastructure is falling apart.
So you said a little bit earlier that if we carry on this downward trajectory, we're going to damage the water quality across the country very quickly. But just give us a more detailed picture of what that would look like for ordinary South Africans and how quickly that's likely to happen without any intervention.
So look, I mean, how quickly that's going to happen is a difficult one to assess, right? But I mean, when you think that you've got 52% of your drinking water at critical to medium risk, you've got 40% of your tests that were done where the municipalities just do not comply with microbiological tests. They do not comply with chemical water compliance. So it's a downward kind of trend that if we don't do something now, we could see water becoming so polluted that we can't fix it. Let me give you examples. The Vaal Dam, for example, the Vaal River. We have such high levels of E. coli because of sewage that has spewed into, and because of the municipality, that sewage has spewed into the rivers. It is so polluted that it's going to take years to fix. And the longer we wait, the more expensive it is going to be to actually get this right again. So that is the challenge. But having said that, even if we look at the fact that South Africa is a water scarce country, right? And we have climate change. So water is going to be hard. It's going to be one of those commodities. It's going to be harder and harder to get clean, good water. And I think that some of the statistics are saying that by 2030, which is around the corner, that we will only be able to provide water for the 60% of the needs of the country because of climate change, because of failing infrastructure, because of failing municipalities.
Certainly very bleak figures. Thank you very much for your insights. That was Ferial Adam, Water and Environment Manager at WaterCan.